You guys join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Right corner. Thank you. Okay, your roll call.
Yes. Mr. Bassett. Here. Mr. Fenske.
Here.
Mr. Ham.
Here.
And Mr. Richards.
Here.
We have 4.
Okay, cool. We're gonna start tonight's meeting off with elections. We'll be electing president, vice president, secretary tonight. We'll open the floor for nominations from the board for president to begin. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Steve Richards for president.
Any seconds?
Second.
All right, I will accept. Can we vote with roll call? Or do we, aye?
You can aye.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
I guess I vote for myself. I'm just so used to doing it. Any opposed? All right, so moved. Next, we'll go to the nomination for vice president. Nominate Rich Bassett.
Second.
Sure. We'll do a vote by all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, I won't be able. Heavy responsibility.
All right, we're gonna complete with secretary. Any nominations for secretary?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to nominate Kate Rang as secretary.
I'll second that.
No, this is committee secretary, not recording secretary.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I'll nominate Joel Fenske.
Apologize.
Is there a lot of responsibility, Kay, for that? Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, cool. Those are all done. We'll move to approval minutes from our most recent meeting, which was October of last year. Nomination or anyone move to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so moved. All right. Now we can get to public hearing. We'll start with the case BA 25-4, if the petitioner would like to get up and present.
BA 25-4 and BA 25-5 are being presented together.
Okay,
You will have to vote on them separately.
okay.
Good evening. My name's Jeff Heinzman. I'm an attorney with Heinzman Law Office, and I represent property owner Nate Nocton, who trying to make a little room here. Who owns the property at issue at 11215 East 121st Street. We're seeking 2 variances, a land use variance and a development standards variance. The land use variance is to allow for his in-home home located business to allow 5 cars and 5 trailers to be stored there. The ordinance only allows for 1, and we're requesting a variance to permit additional. In addition to that, we're seeking a development standards variance to allow for a much wider than normally allowed in a residential drive to get in, and some pavement to permit those vehicles to be stored on pavement as opposed to just on the grass back behind. We understand there could be some commitments along the lines of a gate at the front of the house that would be closed to make it. I'll get into that as we move forward. The land use variance is very similar to one that you guys have already granted for this property. BA 19-3, you granted that back in April of 2019. And they have a landscape business. They have actually permission to have 5 more trucks and 3 more vehicles than we're seeking. They parked them all back behind an accessory structure, but they've got a huge amount of gravel. We're talking about doing more paving. And if you're coming down Promise Road towards this property with the elevation, you can see all of that from the road. Where we are, everything will be much less visible to people in general. As you can see from the property, which is at the right corner on this screen, this is from 1974. Back then, even, you had a little gravel drive with two access points on 121st Street. Those two access points have been there all along, 1984, 85 rather, 1998. You can see it's even more pronounced there. 2006, 2016, and more or less present day, that's from last year. One of the things you can also see is with the cars that are parked right in front of the driveway there, right in front of the part of the garage, there's not a lot of room to get in and out of the garage. If you're gonna not allow a wider drive, the garage door is kind of towards the right side of that frontage of the house when you're pulling in. So if you're gonna have it narrower than where it is, you're gonna have to be maneuvering, turning in and turning right back in to get into the garage. And if you're gonna be having vehicles that can be stored along the west property line on the left side there, those vehicles, if you don't allow it to be wide enough there, are gonna need to try and maneuver with the new roundabout that'll be there and the new 6 to 8 foot wide sidewalk that's also gonna run in front of the house there. Just continuously encroaching and making it more difficult to use and get into the house there. And the garage, half of the garage will be used for the business and is used for the business. You really need that width in order to be able to both safely bring the vehicles in to the area that will be back behind the house and to safely bring vehicles in and out of the property and the garage for the homeowner. In addition, so let's see. And I'm sort of combining some of this discussion. This is a little further south on Hoosier Road. And you can see the property at the top there on the right on Hoosier Road runs down the middle. That is a driveway in also zoned R2 where the drive is, I think about 60 feet wide? Yeah. This is near the roundabout at Cynthia and 136th. That is a 60-foot wide driveway. If you see that car that's parked there, you can see there's 2-3 car lengths to get from the house to the street there. Where we are, we really only have like 1.5, 2 car lengths to get to the street. And it's much more difficult to maneuver if you're going to cut that access point and choke it down to 24 or 30 feet. This is the other side of that same roundabout. This property has 2 access points, one on Cynthia and one on 136th that have been allowed. So that takes care of sort of those photos. The staff has proposed, to get to some of the pavement.
Are you using our presentation or do you want to slide?
I'd like to get to that slide, so.
There you go.
Yeah. So here's, the staff has proposed, you can see this red paved area. 3 issues with this. One, we need a wider entrance. We're losing the secondary access point on 121st Street, so you can't just pull through and pull out like you're going to be able to use to. You're also shifting that over so that maneuvering onto the driveway with a sidewalk that's going to be there to then turn hard right into the garage is going to be impractical. Third, the area that they're allowing paved that's currently gravelled in front of the house, they want to cut that off at the walk that goes into the laundry room for the house. My clients would like that to extend beyond, as you can see, the original drawing that we sent, beyond the front corner of the house there, because when people come and visit, they don't come in through the laundry room, they come in through the front door. And if they're going to be driving onto the pavement, then they're going to have to trudge around the house without being able to cut across to that. The width that they have for the part that proceeds to the south along the west gets too wide because of septic field issues there. That needs to be basically just 22 feet straight back like we have it on the drawing that we had. We are trying to have some conversations with engineering to allow a secondary access point on Hoosier Road so that when you pull vehicles in and trailers in and store them, we could just, rather than trying to maneuver and back them in and out onto Hoosier Road in front of the school and at the roundabout, we would be able to go straight. And if we can get that approval, we would be seeking that additional pavement as well. If we can get that approval for that curb cut on Hoosier Road, which would make a lot of sense. As you can see, where this property is and where it's been, and with what's going to be encroaching in terms of the sidewalk and the roundabout that come in on the north side of the property, it's creating some significant practical difficulties here. If you look at the use variant, the land use variance, first of all, this is entirely consistent, although 5 vehicles less and 3 trailers fewer than VA 19-3 at 13210 Promise Road under the same zoning. It wouldn't be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, general welfare for the same reasons that theirs was. This is a building, there's a business that already exists. It doesn't, business that already exists. And what this is going to be doing is actually making it nicer with more pavement, making sure that storage can be back behind the house. The use of the area adjacent to the property hasn't been and likely won't be injured by this. In fact, I would argue that with this back behind and with pavement, you're looking at something that's actually going to increase and not have any substantially adverse effects on this. Third, same with 19, the 2019 variance. The need for the variance doesn't arise from some peculiar condition of the property, but the code applicable to the property is violated without the variance, even though the business is already in place, has been operating well. The city officials actually used the business for some landscaping in the past, and it serves the community. It serves various HOAs in the community as a landscaping business. And in addition, it's right across from a school, and the school has never had any issues or problems. In fact, finds them to be a good neighbor. Strict application of the terms of zoning court will result in practical difficulties. Again, because you're not going to be able to continue to operate a business that's been there for coming up on or including 10 years. And the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan and would align with the Fisher's comprehensive plan over time. So that's the first variance. The second variance for the width, as I pointed out earlier, one, we've had dual access throughout the life of this property. We've had 2 spots of access where you could pull in and pull out. That second access, because of where the roundabout's going, is going away. My clients still need to be able to pull in and out of their house, still need to be able to have people who come visit them at their house park and be able to get to the front door, and need to be able to put those vehicles that they need for the business on a paved area back behind the house, which again, my client, who's there's going to be not an insubstantial amount of money that he puts into this much pavement that's going to go in there. He understands that, and he's willing to do that. Some of the commitments the city has suggested, my clients are opposed to, one of which would be being annexed into the city. He's deliberately chose this piece of property, which is a Fall Creek Township property, not a city of Fisher property. My client is open to various conditions. There was a condition about keeping the trees that are on the southern property line intact. My client will do that, though. You point out most, if not all, of those trees are not on his property. They are on the neighbor's property. So I think some of that is kind of the shadowing that you see on the pictures might make that more difficult for people to understand. With respect to the development standards variance, it wouldn't be injurious to the public health. We've always had 2 points of access, given the proximity to 121st Street. That wide entry is necessary for both access to the garage and access to the side of the house to get through. If you shift that over and try and keep it narrower and shift it over so there's a more straight shot to the garage, then you're going to be asking trailers and trucks for the business to near a roundabout, near a school, come around and then weave around and have to avoid hitting the front corner of the house to get onto that side. You want this to be wide because it's going to be the safest way to maintain safety for ingress and egress, to maintain usability for the house, and to maintain safety for any pedestrians that are going to be on that sidewalk moving forward. The city, let's see, my apologies. So it's not injurious to the public health, safety, welfare, morals, general welfare, as I've already indicated. It's going to help with pedestrian and traffic flow, maneuverability, and safer access to the pad. The use and value, again, for the same reason, will not be impaired. I would argue it would be improved. This is going to look much better. It's going to look much better than some of the other. Again, I would point out that the 2019 property, that huge amount of pavement, of area they have is almost all gravel. And strict application will result in practical difficulties and that the business would be hampered, probably wouldn't be able to operate there anymore, road access, more difficult and encroachment if you don't have that wide entry. I'm happy to take any questions, I guess, at this point.
Thank you. Do I have any questions for the petitioner?
I have a few, like maybe they may be answered with the staff's presentation.
I'm happy to come back for rebuttal to
Yeah.
answer any questions at that point, and I think with this many people here, that might be the best option. So, thank you very much. I'll get this to the end of, there you go, Christie.
Thank you.
Good evening, Christy Cashman, City Planner with the City of Fishers Planning Department. The project before you tonight is a consideration for a land use variance and a development standard variance for 11215 East 121st Street. Land use variance is a request for a variance from section 5.7.2.c of the city's Unified Development Ordinance to allow a landscaping company as a home occupation that will store 5 vehicles and 5 trailers on the property, where only one vehicle is allowed per home occupation. The development standard variance is a request for a variance from 6.4.3 of the UDO to allow a 60-foot wide driveway entrance at the back of curb or edge of pavement where a 34-foot wide driveway entrance is allowed, and a 50-foot wide driveway at the back of curb or edge of pavement where a 24-foot wide driveway is allowed. The property is located in R2 residential district and regulated by the city's UDO. The surrounding area is shown here as zones PUDR to the north, open space to the east, R2 residential to the south, and PUDR to the west. The Fishers 2040 plan identifies this area as a suburban residential, which calls for the area to be single-family detached residential at low densities ranging from 2 to 4 dwellings per acre. The variance requests do not align with this vision. As shown in this drawing, on the left, the petitioner would like a 60-foot curb cut along East 121st Street and a 140 by 22-foot paved area along East 121st Street, a 22-foot wide paved driveway for storage and driving along the western edge of the property line, and a 12-foot paved drive on the southern property line. The drawing on the right was drawn by staff as the recommended allowed paving area for this driveway. This recommended size created a driveway that still resembled a residential home, allowing standard residential parking allowing standard residential parking near the garage and door to the home, as well as room for storage in the rear of the home. The curb cut that staff recommended exceeds the current size allowed per the UDO. However, staff would have been supportive of the variance to increase the driveway curb cut to 36 feet. The petitioner did not take this recommendation into consideration. This site plan shows a new curb cut along Hoosier Road. The petitioner is working with City of Fishers Engineering Department on this request. Also, staff is aware of the variance VA 19-3 on Promise Road. This is the current conditions of the home. The photos on the top of the screen were taken about 3 weeks ago. The ones at the bottom were taken earlier today. There are currently 9 cars in the parking lot in the driveway, 1 dumpster and 2 trailers parked on site. We received 4 public comments after the writing of the staff report. All 4 comments supported the petitioner, stating that the business has never been a problem in the area and that it seems reasonable to allow these variances since the city is taking some of the land for the roundabout and the sidewalk along East 121st Street, and because of the proximity to the school and the traffic that will be generated by the community center. I want to bring up the Director of Engineering to discuss the reasoning for removing the eastern curb cut along East 121st Street and the need for standard sized curb cut for the driveway.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hatzaf Menke, Director of Engineering for the City of Fishers. As you all know, 121st and Hoosier is going to be a future roundabout. Construction is going to start here in the summertime. And the logic behind a lot of the decisions that engineering has made is for the safety and the operational integrity of the roundabout. As you can see, the intended width of the petitioner here is approximately 60-foot wide driveway. As you can see, the width of the existing roadway currently is about 4 lanes. 60 foot is approximately 5 lane widths of opening, which is probably more wide than the actual roadway itself currently. We deviated from the standard allowed driveway for a residential parcel, which is 24 feet. We allowed for 36 foot wide driveway for this petitioner. But our main concern was the operation of this roundabout. As you know, the roundabouts do have chicanes entering and exiting the roundabouts. And any impedance on the operation of the roundabout produces a lot of safety factors that we would like to avoid. On all of our future projects and current projects, when we do have roundabouts, we limit and eliminate any driveways that are within the envelope of the roundabout, with also maintaining at least one access to the parcel. It is the engineer's recommendation is to be in the roundabout's favor and the safety of the operations of that roundabout, and limiting one access point to this parcel. Any questions? Thank you.
For conversation purposes, do you have an overlay showing the roundabout on top of that parcel?
I do not.
We may have a plan set, but I don't have it for right now.
I have on my computer, or which I could pull up here, is I have an engineer drawing, but not an overlay quickly.
I have printouts, but if I have access to the drawing.
Anybody else want to?
While he's looking that up, I will, here's my last slide. These are the staff recommendations for both variances. So for BA 25-4, the land use standard, Staff has no recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Should the board approve this recommendation, approve this petition, staff recommends it is done with the following conditions. 1, that the property is annexed to the city of Fishers. 2, that all driveway, parking, and storage areas will need to be paved and shall not exceed that drawn in the sketch provided by staff. The 60-foot curb cut would be contingent on the VA 25-5. Any gravel that is currently installed outside of the allowed paved area shall be removed and returned to grass. No parking or storage will be allowed on grass. The tree line on the southern edge of the property shall be preserved. All vehicular outdoor storage related to the business shall be stored behind a gate along East 121st Street. This includes employee vehicles, which cannot exceed 5 per the variance requested. All outdoor storage must comply with section 6.10.4 of the city's UDO. Outdoor storage must be screened from Hoosier Road. This must be done in compliance with section 6.10.4.d of the city's UDO, and the approval letter and relative documentation shall be recorded with the Hamilton County Recorder's Office. For variance VA 25-5, the development standard, staff recommends denial to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Should the board approve this petition, staff recommends it is done with the following conditions. That the property be annexed to the city of Fishers, that all driveway, parking, and storage areas be paved and shall not exceed that drawn in the sketch provided by staff, that any gravel that is currently outside of the paved area shall be removed and returned to grass, the tree lines on the southern edge of the property be preserved, and that the approval letter and relative documentation be recorded with the Hamilton County Recorder's Office. Any questions for staff or petitioner at this time?
At the request of the board, for all of you who can read engineering documents, the roundabout is located here on the right. The property in question is located in the bottom left corner that is noted as Nocton Nathan E. Per these engineering documents, Becky, feel free to chime in. See here the proposed right-of-way improvements, the trail adjacent to the road that was mentioned. And as of right now, in these construction documents, I believe is a 12-foot driveway that staff, as mentioned before, was okay with increasing that width. So.
Perfectly helpful.
Really feel that.
This location right here is,
This is the sidewalk.
this is
It
the,
says it up here. You can see grass.
this is the laundry
The
that you were
house,
saying.
yeah.
This is
The
the
path into the laundry room.
path is right here. This is the edge of pavement. This is where your this is the gravel second
Right.
access point. This is obviously the first access point you can see here. This is the edge of the existing. And I can't necessarily show here where that existing edge is. But this is basically the
This is the
limits of the
property
house
line.
right here.
Staff is willing to let this be almost, or twice the
36.
size, so.
Does anybody have any questions for staff right now? You guys have?
That was one of their questions, or I think their proposal from the petitioner.
Any questions for staff before we do public hearing?
Yeah, you had referenced on one of the recommendations in storage complying with 6.10.4. What exactly does that specify?
Sorry, I think it's in the staff.
Sorry, I'm not trying to.
No, that's okay. I didn't put it in my slide, but I put it in the staff.
I mean, just generally, is that just say the type of storage building?
And my client has no objection to us, complying with storage requirements committee.
That's just a screening
Yes.
thing, okay. So it doesn't say anything about the type of storage or anything, it's just how it has to be screened.
Yeah, so if the
basically.
dumpster's there, it's gotta be in an appropriate location and an appropriate
Okay.
screening, and if there needs to be a gate in front of where the vehicles will be stored at the front of the house, so that's, and yeah, my client will do those.
Screening shall be provided to reduce visibility of the outdoor display from the parking lot and primary roadways by installing 2-foot to 3-foot wall, which in this case would be a privacy fence. Or screening shall have a 10-foot wide landscape buffer. There's a
There's
few,
options.
so you can't see it.
And then on the vehicles, you had, 5 commercial vehicles, but I think in another piece it said 5 vehicles and 5 trailers, so that would be 10 total.
10 total and 1 vehicle is allowed per home occupation or a 1 home occupation.
Okay, and so then the petitioner lives in this home still, right?
He does.
And always will or plans
Yes.
to do so. So that does not include personal vehicles for the house?
And also, tonight's purview of tonight is not, we're not talking about the curb cut and the opening on Hoosier.
On Hoosier Road? No. That is,
But part of the pavement that would run down all the way through there is part of what we're discussing tonight.
yes, they basically could do that up to not putting a curb cut in on Hoosier Road.
However, my client would not be putting that pavement there if he doesn't get the curb cut.
And when is that gonna be decided or?
That's a great question. We're gonna have to have a discussion, since tonight's the first time I've heard from engineering.
So the proposal was what that, so they had the hand sketched out drawing.
Correct.
Their recommendation is what was shown in red.
Staff's recommendation.
Staff's recommendation is denial, but if granted, what's shown in red.
And
And I'm happy to talk more about the red in my rebuttal. But I think I already did address it a little bit.
so in all of those vehicles that are shown in that aerial, those would all be stored behind the building.
Correct.
Um,
Unless any of those are the homeowners, there might, one or two of those might be the homeowners' personal vehicles as opposed to, it could be intermixed. The one that's, the truck that's on the right there out of the red area might be, I can't tell you what everything in that picture is, but yes, any of the vehicles that are related to the business would be stored back behind.
And behind, just since we're on this topic, how much is that red area encroaching on the septic? And is it,
This is where that kind of fencing would be for the gate. My understanding is anything that comes wider than here, going back here, is encroaching into the septic. That coming wider than, this is about 22 feet right here.
there's documentation on that?
Coming wider than 22 feet is encroaching into the septic, is that correct?
Correct. No, there's no documentation because there wasn't any when it was put in.
Okay.
But since I've done maintenance on it, that's
You
what
know
it's
where
at.
it is, okay.
Yep. I don't want to drive on it. I don't want to put pavement on it. I don't want to crush it. I don't want to have to dig through it if I have a problem in the future. It's a bad idea.
I think at the
7 ways to Sunday.
yeah, at the very end, it might not be an issue where it would be turning to go down if we did get that second curb cut to run a 12-foot wide stretch down. But it provides no benefit unless you're able to turn left and go that way to widen it once you get to the back there.
Well, and it feels impractical that you can't turn around if we don't. You pull back there, you can't get out.
You're either gonna need to back in or back out with a trailer.
And that's what those two, those are trailers?
Those are trailers.
Okay, I couldn't tell if those were like storage container units or
So
something.
they've been able to, obviously, they've been able to back in. Yeah, those are landscaping company trailers.
I don't know if I'm,
So you've seen like the landscaping company pulls up and then mowers back out at, on the street to go do the common areas in your subdivision. It's that kind of trailer.
guess this is for Ross and Rodney. I don't know if I'm staying in protocol here for the meeting, because I know we have the public hearing. I don't know that we're gonna feel complete to make a decision today. And I don't know if we have to make a decision today with incomplete information, so I'm just curious before we let everybody talk and then we get to the same potential issue that if staff propose something that will, I don't know if you guys are okay with putting pavement over a septic.
We don't want to damage or.
No, which this is a smaller drawing. It was unclear to me that this second proposal was also over the septic. I knew that the other one I proposed that had more storage like here, they came back to me and let me know that that one was over the septic.
Yeah, I feel like we're just
I wasn't
not,
aware that this one was also.
yeah, I just feel like there's information that hasn't been shared all the way back and forth with everybody right now, and I feel like there's two options up there, and I think there's option 3, maybe. So I don't know about punting this, but I'm just asking before everybody talks, and then we can't make a decision or we make a bad decision.
You have the right to have one of you decide to put a petition up to stay the decision, come back and hear it again.
But if they don't change anything and we're just hearing the same information.
We would need direct direction from the BZA to know what it is
What
you're looking
additional
for.
information you want to see.
And our conversation needs to be after the public hearing, or can we
No,
can talk now about what we've already heard.
your conversations always have to be in the public.
But that's what I mean, but we can do it. Can we talk about this now before we hear the public hearing?
Certainly.
Okay.
That you would do that in the guise of a motion to stay until the next hearing and then discuss your motion once you put it on the table.
But we can talk about making that motion. Okay. Does anybody agree with what I'm saying? I don't want to make a decision like this tonight. I think it's impractical. If we don't want to encroach on the septic, they can't turn around. I think it's gonna be hard to get trailers in and out of there. And if we shorten the width up there,
Well, let me ask this question. What is the way by which we can determine the septic field? Is that, like, do you have a schematic that shows the location of the septic field at all? Or
No, there's no schematic. It is,
It was built a long time ago under the county. This is Nate Nocton, by the way, the property owner.
septic tank sits right here. All the fingers go out to this way and they come this way. That entire square green spot area, that is the septic tank. That's where it goes. It doesn't go anywhere on the other part. The well's in the front of the property, so it's all here.
So basically off the corner of the house.
Correct. So anything here going straight back and basically from the straight, it's a little bit farther. It's a little bit farther than the house this way, but it's there. But it does not go to the end of it.
And that width between the western edge of the house and where you have vehicles parked, what's that width right there?
22 feet.
That's 22 feet.
Yeah. And the reason I asked for 60 is real simple. That's from here to here. 36 doesn't work when you just look at the daggone picture. Because right there is where the walking path's gonna be. So you can't turn. I didn't just come up with 60. The garage door is right here. That's to enter the garage door. If you want to enter the garage. The garage door goes to there. Then you need this space, which is where the dumpster sits, which is right there. And then you need this space here. There's no room to turn once you come down. So unless you're gonna have two driveways that are like separated with like a little green spot where that there is, it needs to be one continuous driveway.
Is the dumpster being proposed to remain in front of the house or will it also have to be shielded?
I will shield it. It sits right there because that's the easiest place and it's been there for 12 years. That's where Republic comes and accesses it. They come in, they pull in, stand up, and if I bring it anywhere in the back, that's gonna have to be offside the roadway because it would block it. And they'll put the dumpster on top of the septic field and then you're driving that on top of that.
Can you explain on your proposed part, Because it looks like it says 50 at the top.
This is 50 because they have 5 going to the right or the left, which on the curb cut, but doesn't matter because it's gonna be a paved asphalt on both sides.
And then if you got that, that goes all the way through and then comes out on, what is that, 126th or?
This is 121st and this is Hoosier.
Okay, so if you got what you wanted going out to Hoosier.
Yeah.
Is that after the 50, that little spot of some, going off to the right from your 50?
So this is 22 feet wide, so this is where the existing coming.
That
I think he's
other part
asking,
where
do
it
you need
says-
the other
you
extension
need
at
that
the top?
extension at the top.
Yes.
You still are looking
Yeah.
for that even though. you
Because if
have-
you're gonna park trucks and trailers that are gonna be in the back area, that there's no residential, you know, if my dad, if somebody else comes and parks with it, that'll be, you know, if on Saturday I have a birthday party for my kids, this is all gonna be sealed off and full of trucks and trailers. So where's everybody gonna park?
Is the overlap that we saw with the roundabout and the sidewalk, does that overlap that area?
Yeah, it comes all the way to here. And when you look at it, that chicane on 121st is significantly longer than the ones that go north and south on Hoosier. The only thing that does is cut off my U-shaped driveway. The only thing it does. It cuts this off here. It comes this way, but on this end, it only comes to here. It's a shorter one. You're not redesigning it. All you're doing is you're popping out here the farthest I can get away from it. So you already have a short one to the north and a short one to the south. You have a long one that only cuts me off. It doesn't cut off the school, it only cuts off my driveway. From the least amount of traffic coming into that thing is come from this direction. The north and the south will have more traffic. We want to get as far away from it as possible. That way when we pull out. Our guys work every day. So you're gonna take a truck and a trailer and you're gonna back 5 of them either in or out in the morning or the afternoon. We've had no accidents. That will change by just the definition of doing that repeatedly over and over and over.
Have you always operated the business out of this location?
Yes.
Since like 2 decades? 10
Yeah, I've been here for 12 years and I've had trucks and trailers here for 12 years. So the reason I bought this piece of property was for 4 reasons. 1, it was unincorporated. 2, it had a U-shaped driveway. I only looked at properties with U-shaped driveways. This garage is the same size as this is the house. This garage is 1,200 square feet, but it only has 1 garage door. So it's a workable shop that I can do projects in. It has that. It's on a well and a septic. So those are the 4 things I was looking for. Large, unincorporated, U-shaped driveway, large shop, and a well and septic. And that's what it fit the bill for. So that's why I chose the location. I don't have a problem with the roundabout being there. I don't have a problem with the walking path getting through there. Just don't cut it off or it crushes our business. It's not much to ask since the driveway's been there for 50 freaking years.
I've got 2 questions. The right-hand turn down there at the lower left, I mean, your truck and trailer is not gonna make that curve. So, yeah,
I'll
right,
have to round it off.
right, so that won't be in the septic field then?
If it is, it's the farthest corner from there.
Okay.
So if it is in any impact, we're talking about the very end of the very longest finger of it's coming down here. So it would be coming down here and it'd be the very longest. I put a perimeter drain in through here on my property that went around this way, and I didn't hit anything in there within 5 feet. So I know it doesn't come out to the last 5 feet of the 5 feet because that's where I tracked the drain that went through there. So I know they got to be shorter. So if I do impact it, it would be right there at the most for whatever that turn would be.
And, would you be opposed to right-hand turn only out of the driveway onto Hoosier?
There are some telephone poles there. If we would move it to make that we could do it, I would not be opposed to that. Mostly my guys would most likely do that as to get down to 116th Street. And it would be easier for them to access when they're pulling out to be able to make that curve by going into oncoming traffic and coming back to make a wider turn because of the turn radius of a truck and a trailer, which is pretty common for anybody who pulls a truck and trailer out to go a little farther than you need to so you don't curve anything. Specifically because there are telephone poles that are there. But shifting this, if I shifted it 5 or 10 feet or whatever it needed to be to do that, I wouldn't have opposed to that.
That southern entrance, the visual sight line of you having a truck and a trailer pulling out while someone else is traversing through the roundabout coming south, that is kind of a concern that pops out to me. Like, where's the distance for a decision point of a driver who's in the roundabout coming through, or you have a truck and a trailer pulling out at that same location?
It's the same as if I was backing the truck and trailer out here. This is actually safer, in which we have the ability to have eyes to look and see who's coming through that roundabout and make a decision where we're pulling out. So whereas if we're backing in or backing out, now we're having to pay attention. Now the trailer's backing out on the roadway, and there's less likely of who's coming out of that. When you're coming out of that roundabout, they're going to be shooting out of this way, because they do. They shoot out of it. I walk it every morning with my daughter across the street. They shoot out of that intersection like bullets. We wait here to cross the road because people don't slow down. That's the only way I can tell. And then they come shooting out of it. So it's still going to be an issue for that. That is the farthest I can make it away from the roundabout.
I was more concerned with southbound travel through the
Yes.
roundabout or eastbound travel to a right turn coming south, where it's more of a blind of vehicles coming in. They're not anticipating a truck and trailer entering the roadway.
This is also as far away as I can physically get it without obviously buying my neighbor's house and going down property. But there are, last year, on 141st and Promise Road, Noblesville built a roundabout. But on the southeast corner, there's an unincorporated part of Fishers. On that, they put a roundabout, they put the driveway where it currently existed. That current one actually is in the chicane. You will hop the curb of the chicane there. There is no building there. There is nothing. It is a very large area. If they wanted to, they could have moved that as far away from it as came. Now, I know Noblesville built that, but Fishers would have had to approve that. And it's inside it. So it is by definition inside. You hop the median to get to that driveway. And there's nothing there. So there's no reason that it had to be there. It could have been moved to any direction. This, I can't move my house. I can't move it. And when you approach it farther down, then you're limited on that. This is the farthest I can get away from it, even though this driveway has been here for 50 years. If this chicane was the same distance as that one, I could still pull out of that one and still cross traffic. You could come in from the south and you could still make that turn.
The picture on the right, there's several cars lined up there.
Yes.
Is the vehicle farthest to the right, is that directly in front of the existing garage door? No, not that, yeah.
No, the garage door is actually here. None of these vehicles are blocking that garage door. It lines up that you back straight out. That's why that gravel is right there for the mailbox. So you need it from here as a straight shot across to here. And once you put the walking path in, which will basically be where these, coming there, you're only going to have one vehicle space.
With your new plan, or is there a new parking plan for you as well, or?
Yeah, so that way, if this is wide enough, I can park this way and then pull out for any exterior parking and then still be able to park in here.
Okay.
And then this gives separation, that I want to have a separated green space. That's why it's only 22 feet wide. This here is currently wider than 22 feet, but I want to maintain some green space in here that's between the walking path and our paved area, and I want to plant some trees there for some privacy across there. So as people are walking to the part that I can create a privacy barrier, I will. I just can't do it, can't plant trees and pavement. I know you want to maybe punt it. They're building this as soon as school ends. So if you punt it till next month, that plan where we only get a 12-foot driveway right there starts. Now we're not talking about moving pieces of paper. We're now actually talking about stopping equipment from moving on a truncated timeline. And we're saying stop, change orders now, and doing everything. Or stuff gets put and we're now ripping stuff out. Right now it's just drawings. Make it wider. We proposed these things since August. We're trying to get as far away as possible to do that, to get things behind there, to try to conform as much as this. But we need 60 feet because that's where the garage door is. That's where the property line is. That's how you access the back. If you limit that, you either can't get in the house, can't access the garage door, or you can't access getting behind the property. Like you eliminate that, it doesn't matter.
So for staff, maybe engineering, if we approve the 60-foot there, does that change the actual plan that you're running with right now?
Yes.
By how? like drastically? I understand you said it creates a,
There's obviously some aspects, if you do change that to 60, or it does get approved at 60, there's the drainage aspect of it that goes into figuring out where the inlets go, and that takes on a different, you know, animal on its own. Staff was approving 36, we can go to 36, and we don't want to really dictate what goes on inside the business or the house or whatnot. You know, there could be some adjustments with turnarounds, or maybe utilizing some area east of the house to maybe have a turnaround and utilize that same entrance, which we see a lot in the city. It's just 60 feet seems to be a little bit more wider than we would accept as far as access.
what if it was in the middle of the 50-ish? What if we cut it down by 10? Does that ruin your plan?
Yeah. Because you still got access over here to get everything to behind.
So you're 60 or bust, you're 60 or bust.
Yeah, because once you get here, you're gonna have cars lined up there. That's one parking space. Can you imagine trying to get like just your car, drive out here to where the parking spaces are, drive in, go over 4 spaces and hook a right and then go into what that little amount is there. Do that every day and then back in and out.
Let me ask a question, I think this is probably directed to staff or maybe Rodney. Let's say this project is not happening with the roundabout. Is the current use and the number of vehicles there in compliance with existing?
No.
So let's say the roundabout goes away and that doesn't happen. Can the existing use continue as it is with the number of vehicles and how they have it today?
No, not unless you approve the land use variance.
That's the
Which
first
is why they're presented separately.
The land use variance is to bring the business into compliance, just like the land use variance that was filed in VA 19-3.
Yeah.
Same situation, although they had 10 vehicles and 8 trailers, and we're asking for 5 and 5.
The reason we're out of compliance is because we have a successful business. We started with 1 truck and trailer. And then our crime is we got good. People like our service. We service a lot of people, hence we needed more stuff. And then while growing it, I never thought, hey, I'm not in the city. When I'm buying this truck and trailer, do I need to come ask somebody if I can park more stuff on my gravel driveway? The reason they're parked on along 121st is where the daggone driveway is.
It is a common problem though, when businesses grow, they typically relocate. I'm not saying to move, but I'm just saying like that's part of the struggle is tonight. I understand what I'm saying. I'm glad you guys are successful for sure. I've owned several businesses and it sucks when you have to sell a building because you don't have anywhere to put your employees. It's the same problem, right? So I feel what you're going through there. It feels like a punishment.
Well, if it was something that, if every business owner who started a business is like, oh, by the way, I need a variance for what I projected in 5 years, 10 years, I'm going to need to expand to, that I don't have, or if you want to see a failed business, go find one that got into a property they can't afford that we will sell. That's how restaurants go under constantly. We bought a space, we thought we're going to sell so much stuff, and they didn't. We ran it responsibly, in which we didn't go out and find these other things. That way we could grow, we could put it back into the business, and we could survive to do that.
Do you store at all plantings, hardscape,
No.
mulch? Where's that?
So we don't store anything. So we don't have any outside storage of bulk material. So we don't have mulch. We don't sell plants. Our guys show up in the morning, they get in the trucks and they leave. They come back at the evening and that is it. We don't have clients who come in. We're not going to have 50 clients every day who are pulling up to buy flowers, to buy pumpkins or any of that. We don't have heavy equipment. We don't have bulldozers. We don't have dump trucks. We don't have anything of that size that would have bulk storage. So we don't have a loader loading out in the middle of the night for that. So we don't have additional foot traffic for commercial. We don't have any bulk storage. The only thing that gets delivered to our house is Amazon packages of that size. So we don't have anything more besides that. I mean, Amazon comes to our house pretty often. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't show up, but we do run a business for that. But I'm pretty sure there's some people in most houses that are probably buying Amazon packages as we are.
How much room for growth is there if you get this approved and everything's packed in?
I know I'm at my max. Like, there's no room for bulk storage. I can't decide like I'm
More
gonna,
cars, even if you just get busier with hiring more guys.
yeah, like we're at the max capacity that we can be at, and we know we're at that growth point. This will allow what we currently have. I don't know where we would put anything else. That it is, to be honest, like I don't know where we would have anything. If we did have anything, if I bought a specialty piece of equipment, like I bought a backhoe and a utility trailer for that, I know I can't keep it here. There's nowhere to store it that then we would be able to operate around it. That's gonna have to go to an offsite location, so for some temporary storage to something of that nature, and then we'd be able to make the move. But if we're handicapped to this and we're getting knocked down to one size, to one truck and trailer, that's gonna cripple our business to the size of 70% of loss, or what the revenue that we can actually perform of tasks. Because that's the direct relation. We still have those contracts coming in, but if you don't have the guys to actually execute the contracts, it doesn't necessarily matter. So that will cripple our business into that thing. We would immediately have to find some other location. That other location is not in Fishers. There is no open storage places, open gravel places to go. We would leave. We would probably most likely even leave Hamilton County. Our options are looking to be Sheridan, McCordsville, or Indianapolis, Lawrence area. We're going to be taking a financial impact of most of the places we've looked at are $5,000 a month with a 5-year minimum lease. So it's a $300,000 commitment. On 20% of profit on that means you got to do, 60,000. You're going to have to do another about $300,000 worth of work, which means we're immediately going to have to expand. We have a crew that'll do another $300,000 worth of revenue. Most of our stuff is based on yearly contracts, so that they start in March and they end in November. If you ask me to go find $300,000 worth of work today, I'm going to tell you it's not possible because all those contracts are signed. So we're going to have a death knell for an entire business cycle going through that, where we have this additional overhead that we're not going to have the revenue to support it for at least 1 year that goes to that. We pump a ton of money back into the community. We do roughly on average for the last 3 years, $1.2 million worth of revenue. Most of that comes out from Marion County. So we take we get revenue from outside the county and outside the city, and we bring it into here. Okay? We do provide services for HOAs and a lot of our residential clients here, but mostly it's commercial stuff. We then spend we buy a lot of our products in Fishers if we can. So we buy fuel at most of our fuel gets bought at the get-go at 116th and Brooks and Cumberland. At 116th Cumberland. My guys like it because it's got hot sandwiches in the morning and nice bathrooms. So that's like they go in there, and that's where they go. We spent last year there, the company spent $80,000 worth of fuel that we dumped into that business. My guys probably spent another $20,000 worth of Monsters and Slim Jims. So there's $100,000 worth of.
Let's wrap this part up. We understand it's a big significant.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the extra information. I think it's been helpful. Well, if we need more, we'll play back up. Do you guys have any other questions before we open for?
Thank you. I think the only other thing, the petitioner, because you talked about being maxed out, so I guess part of the use variance request, you're committing that this would always remain your residence, meaning you would never transition or try to transition this into a business-only location.
Correct. It doesn't lend itself.
If you were to do that, you would see a change in zoning and we'd approach it that way.
That's good.
Theoretically.
Okay.
But that's going to the, city council or.
Yeah, if my memory serves me correctly, there was discussions about does this go forward as a rezone to some sort of commercial property? As noted before and presented, this is a R2 property, regardless of incorporated or unincorporated, with the intent that it's a residential property for residential uses. We do allow home occupations. We believe that this exceeds the home occupations, which is why it's here before you tonight. So we believe that staff has directed the petitioner to go in that direct form. Happy if you guys do have direction for us to work with them. If you guys present a motion to continue to work with staff on X, Y, Z, I'm happy to do that. I will also note that while it is great that they support a lot of our businesses in our community, one of our conditions that staff requested was this property was to be annexed into the city. So this property does pay into city taxes. That they requested to not be annexed. So again, I'm happy to pull up the conditions that staff presented. Unaware, truly, and Tim can speak on any of the timing, on the schedule, on the time that it would take on that.
If we did push this to be more work done, is that, what would be, like if there's rezone or other things, I mean, is that back next month? Is that 2 months?
A rezone would go before council, and we would not support a rezone for commercial use in an R2.
Okay, I don't think my client's interested in a rezone. I was
I
hypothetical.
thought you said you would be open to that. You're just saying open to reworking this plan.
Correct. If you give direction to work with the petitioner and staff.
So would that can be back next month? Or
You
not
can
with
give us
noticing?
direction to do it with or without coming back to you.
Oh, it doesn't.
Didn't you say that you're open to annexing this if this goes through the way that you wanted on the proposal? You're okay with annexing?
No,
Well, I thought that's what you had said. at the
No.
beginning. Okay.
my dealings with the city so far have not lent myself to the idea that I want to be more under their auspice. I very much welcome being unincorporated, and I would like to remain unincorporated.
So if we approve this tonight with the condition of that, and he chose not to accept that,
Then the variance would be no.
and you said, Ross, just to be really clear, you said we could give you guys instructions to say, we give this approval a favorable recommendation, but with the condition that they continue to work with you to come up with a favorable whatever instruction.
No, what Ross is talking about is if you decide to stay this until your next meeting, then you have to give Ross and staff clear directions as to what you want to see in the variance request coming back to you.
What did you just say a second ago about you could, where it doesn't have to come back before us? I thought you said we could give.
If you give a favorable recommendation with direction.
Meaning we can say, hey, it's 50 instead of 60 and it's.
Yes,
We
and the
can just-
site
we
plan
can change
does not
anything.
modify.
Okay, that makes sense. I just want to be really clear because this is like such a interesting one.
You've now made the decision that you have enough information tonight to make a decision. The next step should be to open it.
That's what, I was getting ready to ask everybody. Are you guys cool with opening up public?
Yeah,
Feeling like we're going to decide tonight?
I will make a brief statement just for transparency. If we move forward with that, I will be voting on BA 25-4, the use. Even though I've had zero conversations and knowledge previous to this, I am just my possible appearance of conflict with the 25-5. I would be abstaining from the vote on that item.
Heard our quorum?
So here's your three, you still have one.
Say it again.
You would still have three, which is your quorum.
Okay.
You'd have to all be unanimous, but you would still have.
How do you guys feel? You guys have enough information, you think?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then we'll open it up for public hearing. We've heard quite a bit already, so I don't want to limit anybody because I want everybody to be heard. But I do want to give you guys some direction. You have 2 minutes. I'm not sure if we have it keeping time down there, Kay, or, but when you get up, you have 2 minutes, unless you're representing, if you're like representing an HOA or a group of people, then you can have up to 5 minutes. But we would also just ask if if anybody has already gotten up and repeated, if you're going to repeat exactly what was said, you can get up and say, I would like, this has all been said. I just want to give my, endorsement here or unendorse it, however you want to look at that. But we want to keep from just having repetitive information for time's sake tonight. We'll make notes of everything that you guys bring up. We won't talk to you while you're here up presenting. If there's anything that staff or anybody needs to respond to, then we'll do that after everybody's done. So we'll just hear you guys 2 or less minutes at a time. We'll try to avoid repetition and we'll collect all that and then we'll get back to you guys on that. So hearing that, I'll open the public hearing, and if you would like to come up and speak, just state your name and your address for the record, and then we'll start your time.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Carissa Mail. I am the PE teacher at Hoosier Road Elementary. I have been at Hoosier Road for 24 years, so I have seen some of those pictures come and go over time. I was not aware that there was a business happening in front of me. The trucks are there in the morning, they're gone before I get to school, and by the time I leave school at the end of the day, they're gone. I did not know that there was a landscape company until I needed some wheelbarrows. And then I said, hey, I noticed that you have a couple wheelbarrows over there. And we got wheelbarrows to do a community service project with Fishers High School, and we built a long jump pit. So having a neighbor across the street from you that looks after your house or after your school and your community, I think is fantastic. Having lived in Fishers since 1995, is that possible? I've seen a lot of mom and pop businesses come and go. Maybe some of you remember the ice cream hut on 116th Street, Rita's Backyard, Archer's Butchers. I just would hate to see a family have to be in the same shoes as some of their predecessors.
Thank you. What else?
Thank you. My name's Ed Nocton. I'm Nathan's father. He gave a pretty good presentation. I just want you guys to know that he is a college graduate of IUPUI. Construction engineering was his degree, as well as being over in Iraq as a combat engineer and a lieutenant over there doing massive projects. So I know he's throwing a lot of stuff at you guys. And I know I'm his father, but he does know what he was talking about when he was given the different ideas, different things you were asking. That's basically all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kirk Richmond. I am the sales and facility manager at Advanced Turf Solutions here at Fishers. And Nate and his company, Nate's a client of mine. I've known him for the past 4 years. I've watched his business grow from, really didn't know how big you were going to become, but it's substantially grown. He's actually my #1 client. I just petitioned to keep his business thriving here in Fishers. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say I agree with all what they're saying.
My name is Shelley Harder and I live on Berkey Boulevard. So I live in Rolling Knoll, which his home backs up to our subdivision. And we drive right there every day. I have kids that drive to the high school, and his business has never been a problem. It's never caused issues for us. And I think also just the bigger picture that, and I've lived there for 17 years, is that someone can own a home and live there for 12 years, have a family there, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm sorry, but we want this piece of your land in this, and we want our big fancy community center, and you all are just gonna have to deal with the roundabout and the nightmares of traffic and everything else, and just deal with it. And it just, I passed him as he walks his kids across the street to Hoosier Road, and it's like, this is a family. This is someone's property. And, and like, if they want to do all this stuff, then they need to pay for it. They need to pay for it and do it for them. Like, we're not just loaded with money and just pave everything. Concrete's expensive. So it just concerns me as a Fishers resident, and it just feels wrong.
Thank you.
My name is Emily Kwan. I live in Summerlin Trails, which is right behind the Hoosier Road Elementary. I take my daughter there when she misses the bus frequently. And I've never had any issues with trucks pulling in and out of there. And I understand that right now that something else is being prioritized other than their home and their business. So I don't see any, I guess I'm really agreeing with the not wanting to approve something to accommodate for both their business, their home, as well as, allowing basically the city to do what they want to do with the rest of their properties, so.
Thank you.
My name's Don Harder, and I live in the same house as Shelley Harder. I'm the more diplomatic half. So one of the things that the board said was, staff said was talking about safety. And I think that Mr. Nocton's proposal is actually the thing that is going to create the most safe environment with his business staying there, creating the two entrances, giving him enough space to be able to pull in and out safely. A lot of kids, a lot of traffic, increased traffic with the community center, which we're all very excited about. We know we need to make trade-offs and we need to make compromises. This feels like a very fair compromise. Mr. Nocton is doing all of this at his own expense. My wife thinks that y'all should pay for all of it. I know what he's offering to do. Anyway, so I think just taking safety, which was brought up earlier as the number one thing, keeping those kids safe at Hoosier Road, keeping the drivers safe, coming to that road is a major thoroughfare for the high school. A lot of teen drivers coming in and out of there. So keep that as safe as we can by keeping those driveways wide enough and far enough away from that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you. Mason Armstrong. I'm Mr. Nocton's neighbor to the south, next door neighbor at 12025 Hoosier. Being his next door neighbor, this proposed driveway goes to say that it affects me more than probably anyone else in this room. But I would like to say that Mr. Nocton has my full support. He's been an exemplary neighbor for more than 3 years I've lived in Fishers and a great business leader. Thank you.
I'm also a neighbor to the south, it's my mom, and it's just been really fortunate to have a neighbor that'll take care of your yard if your car breaks down. Happen more than once. I appreciate that, and it has been a real, change seeing that development take place. Wonder what and how it's going to impact us, especially Nate. So having kids in the same school, knowing that this is where we're going to be. It's kind of nice. Just knowing that, hey, you've had a plan and it's 12 years later and this is something we didn't know was coming and it's a surprise to all of us. So it's just whatever you guys could do to have some sympathy about our lives. We're adjusting and willing to accept whatever you guys do. So it's just trying to live a life. So do what you can. And frankly, I would have loved more driveway. It's pretty damn small.
Thank you. Else? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing.
Chair, I have one more statement I'd like to make. Any conditions that you guys do tonight, if you do recommend approval, we ask that they are tied to the property owner, and that the property is sold, that variance would be void as well.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Open it up for board discussion right now.
Yeah, I'd like to see, it's a bit unique on the land use standpoint. common that is requested that petitioner is spoken to or not to do so. I don't, my personal opinion is I'm not here to force someone to annex if they don't want to, so that's just my thought on that particular item. I think we can encourage it, we can recommend it, I think maybe in his best interest long term, but I'm don't necessarily have the opinion to force him to do so.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just a choice. I think anyone who, I think I appreciate everybody's comments. As a character witness, if this was a criminal trial, you're set free. Like, you're out of here. Unfortunately, it's just about land use, and I feel like you have a business that's outgrown where you're at. And we're trying to come up with a compromise, right? And it's a good problem to have in some ways, and a crappy one in other ways. So I feel like what we need to decide tonight is if it is in the best interest to create undue stress on the engineering and undue stress on you. I feel like anything we do is going to be a little bit of a stress on everybody to try to make this work a little longer. And understand Ross even bringing up that this runs with the owner because of, I think there's a high likelihood you're not in this location in 5 years, 3 years maybe, honestly. This is my gut feeling, is that this is going to be a bigger change there. And I'm not saying you are or aren't. That's my feeling, is like, it feels like we're trying to really just prolong maybe the inevitable. This isn't a great spot there. I'll just say too, I know we can't get to it tonight. I know we don't want to run into development if it's going under development and moving forward, the idea of punting this. What I don't like is staff's recommendation was unaware of potential septic. I think it's not feasible to run all that pavement out there if you don't get the curb cut. I feel like if we make a decision tonight, it's going to be taking so much into consideration it isn't like finalized. So I'm a little worried about that. I'm not saying we won't. I'm not saying I won't vote tonight. I'm just trying to speak out loud. These are so cut and dry typically that it's really easy, and so this is a hard one because we don't want to hamper your business, and we do want to we do want you to to do what you want to do there, but I also feel like the roundabout schematic didn't do anything, didn't help me at all to understand like how, I don't really understand what a burden it really is. And I know you want to do your job the best you can.
I think if the board is worried about the timeline of the project, this is slated for after school is done, so around May 31st or May 30th, that would be closed down for construction. Usually what goes in first is the drainage structures. So as far as that goes, that I believe is kind of on the upstream side. So if there needs to be some more discussions between us and the property owner of width or anything like that, we could delay the construction of that part. That could be discussed within now or within a month, and we can make some construction changes to it. Whether it's 36, 24, or whatever that width, and whatever the board decides, we can pivot on that side. So I don't want to say that this is a cut and dry May 30th. It's a done deal. We can make adjustments out there on the construction site.
Thank you. Question for staff, Ross. Maybe an unfair question but since it's an open hearing, do you feel like, given even what engineering just said and the information of the septic tank, do you feel like there's potential for staff to work a new plan that would be more favorable?
I think so. My recommendation would be in person, working with staff. There are some communication issues back and forth with email. Staff presenting a plan being say, no, this is what we want. Staff presents something, no, this is what we want. So there was a little bit of that restraint. But I do feel like as here tonight and with the representation that we can come to an agreement.
The only last hiccup I have is I think if staff and engineering accommodate, I've not seen any development like this approved without annexation. So my only concern is that, and I'm sure I'm missing some, I'm sure there are some, I don't know, maybe they're not. But I'm a little worried that we punt this and then they're like, okay, we came up with something that could potentially work, but the sticking point becomes the annexation, because you seem very against that. So I'm just wondering how heavy of a recommendation is that from staff? I mean, it's what?
It is our desire from the administration for any property within the city of Fishers to be annexed into this area. We are providing services, whether a property owner believes that they're being provided those services or not. It is one of our opportunities for properties when and if they need to connect to sewer. It is a requirement to be annexed. They are likely already being served by our police and fire through the township agreement. So there are some changes to taxes. You would no longer pay into township and you would switch over to the city. That is our goal, but it is at your decision.
And if this got approved with everything you wanted except for that, you would decline it?
I have not been getting services from the city. I had at one point in time, my daughter was playing in the car in the driveway and she hit the power lock and locked the doors. My wife was out there watching her. There was a Fishers police officer in the school parking lot. She flagged him down, hey, can you help just get her to unlock the door? We were told point blank, no, you must call the sheriff's department to come and have them come to us. When we've had a vehicle fire at there. Fishers police will not service us. They do not. We had a drainage issue that we brought up to Hoosier, to Fishers. We tried to figure out who owned what. Fishers controls 121st. The county controlled Hoosier Road. The subdivision directly to the west of us, their drainage comes out on the road and was dumping out throughout the whole turn lane. It was washing out the driveway. Yes. But we asked them to do it and they said, we cannot help you.
Mr. Richards,
Yeah,
if I may, just when it comes to the annexation, the one I've referenced in the past from 2019 wasn't a condition back then. I don't know why it would need to be a condition. If the city wants to annex property, there are processes they can go through to do that. If they want to get my client to agree to annexation, then they should do what they need to do to get him there. Making it a condition is not the way to do it. And it's certainly not the way to have him come into the city as a happy, willing resident. He already does contribute some to the city. And while he's not happy with some of the lack of service he's gotten from the city, I'm sure he has received and does get some benefit from the city as well. But I think this property subject to the UDO under an agreement, it's already, the city's already got some authority over it. It's not a necessary point for this. If we can come to an agreement on what gets done, I think making that a sticking point is a poison pill that's really not necessary. And there's ways to get to it maybe in the future in a way that you don't want, we don't want a shotgun wedding,
I believe there's much bigger issues on that list of conditions from staff's perspective, if you were to drive by this property on any given day, than the annexation.
Are you willing to share? Or
I think the images that we shared with you are unfamiliar to a residential property, having an entire front lawn, gravelled, multiple vehicles, and a dumpster. But this is why we are trying to bring it into compliance.
If I may, I was going to maybe do a little rebuttal, and I know you guys have sort of started your discussion as well, but I think just a couple of points, if I may.
Yeah, you go get material.
It was talked about the width of the proposed driveway entrance being, as wide as, 5 lane-ish, for that's kind of an apples to oranges thing to be bringing up. It's the width you need to be able to access the garage and to be able to get in and out of going next to the house. That's just happens to be how big the house is, how wide the side yard is, how wide the vehicles you would want to be, that the city wants put back behind the house, that's the width you need to be able to maneuver in and out of that and to be able to use the house in that way. I mean, I find it a little ironic that there's talk of the tree preservation on the southern edge of the property when the roundabout situation is already removing trees from the northeast corner of the property. My client wants to extend the driveway pad far enough up so that you could come park on the driveway pad and come to the front edge of the house. They only want it to go to that walkway that takes you into the laundry room. Well, that's not how people get into the house. It's unfortunate that this is how the house was situated, where the house was situated on this when it was built, however many years ago. But obviously for 50 years, it's been this way. And the pad that he's asking for that extends along to the north, he wants to shield that with landscaping. He would make that a commitment from the walkway. In addition, it's already gravel. But now they want that gravel to be turned into grass, which is going to be put behind a shield. What does it matter to the city whether there's pavement there or grass? If the pavement is good, convenient, useful to the homeowner. I was on the zoning board for 8 years in Fishers a number of years ago, and I actually had interviewed for the process to get appointed back then. And I was asked a question, and they said, "What are you going to do on a tough call?" I said, "On a tough call, the job is to, where you can, let people use their property as they see fit." And that's why we're here asking for a variance. That's why people do this. You know, annexation, I think, is kind of strange. 60 feet has been recently allowed near roundabouts. I showed you pictures. Yeah, they're part of the PEC. This is not an out of control extra wide. It's based on the circumstances that we find with the property. And ideally, we'd like to work with engineering to get an approval of that curb cut, because I do think that's the ideal situation for this business, for this property. My client's willing to pave the whole thing. If you look at the Promise Road property, they have not paved that whole thing. That is a sea of gravel when you drive by that house. Frankly, I would love it if you guys would agree to allow him to have some of that be gravel for him, because this is a lot of money he's going to spend on paving. It's going to be, if not six figures, darn near close to it. And that's a pretty big investment to be making in your business, in your home, in your community. So the city has changed the nature of this property with what they're doing there. I don't have a problem with roundabouts. I might have a little problem with the community center, but that's beside the point. I don't have a problem with wide walkways. I like to take my dog on walks around town. I like to be able to get from point A to point B. But that is taking this house that is very close to that northern edge, and it's making it a lot harder, whether it's the business or whether it's the homeowner, getting in and out, dealing with it. We're trying to do something in a manner that fits the business, fits the homeowner, fits the property. And, that's why we're here. I understand they see pictures of a property that's out of compliance. It's why we're here for the use variance. It's, so we're going to get those cars in and out. We're going to have storage back where it needs to be. But, to just say, oh, well, at sometimes during the day, you take a picture and it doesn't look nice. You can go by any house in any community and any garage and any yard, and sometimes somebody's pulled on the grass. Sometimes, something else is going on. You just need to, I think some of these conditions are just fine. Obviously, running with the land, recording it, not running with the owner, not running with the land is fine. If the new owner wants to run a business, they'll come in, they'll ask for their variance when it comes. I'm looking at the conditions we have here. I think we've talked about all of those, and my client is more or less amenable to most of them, except for the annexation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To just kind of to touch briefly on the items that were presented, I think from our perspective, from engineers' perspective, we're looking at what the standards call for, what the standards for a residential driveway. We did try to work with the petitioner. I believe that the petitioner did not waive on a lot of things. We tried multiple times presenting some solutions. The responses that we get back is, I want this, there's no wavering. I want this and this and this. And we tried working with them, but I think we didn't necessarily come to a middle ground. We're still, we want to come to a middle ground with them. We don't want the business to leave. We want them to prosper. There's nothing against the business that's going on there. I think as far as the roundabout, the 60-foot, 136 in Cynthiana, I think that was a temporary situation that is also with the new project that's coming in on 136th Street, the widening. That is going away. So that is not something that is permanent, that is available there. All that is part of the extension of that trail. But that is going back to a typical residential driveway on all of our roundabouts that come to the city, 96 in Allisonville. One access to that gas station was taken away because of the proximity of the roundabout. The proposed 116th in Allisonville, one driveway is going to get taken out from that gas station as well for the proximity of the roundabout. And that this area is going to see pedestrians, this area is going to see cars, and we're looking at safety for everyone, not necessarily for the pedestrians or the cars going to the community center, but also the safety of his employees coming out with people coming out of the roundabout. That is an area where sight distance is going to be key. There are drainage structures that are on Hoosier Road that might limit the location of that or change the location of that driveway. But the more important part is the turning radius of those trailers, the turning radius of those trucks, and how the access to that roundabout, and that becoming a blind spot. We've noticed a lot of issues with roundabouts lately, and the one thing that the city does not want is to create an issue for a new intersection. And we're still at the table. We want to work with the homeowner. I think there is a middle ground that can be had, and there's an opportunity for that.
Okay, thank you. Yep. And with all that, when you say the middle ground, do you feel strongly that the safety is greatly hampered if you had a 60-foot opening?
It presents some issues when you're coming into that roundabout and that there's an open area, open paved area. There's pedestrians walking along 60-foot wide. Cars might think that that's a lane. It's a wide 60-foot opening. So it's to me, I think it's a little bit wider than normal, a little bit wider than standard. So to us, we can still work on that width, but I think 60 is a little bit wider.
Okay, thank you.
You have concerns about turning radius, that you want a wider area to come in and out of.
Board, you guys have any discussion you want to have?
I think, so speaking to the land use, we are, it has to be clear on where that approval would just allow for the use in general. That's not stipulating the 22-foot wide drive or the L-shaped drive coming out, regardless of the curb cuts. That's just stipulating they can exist in this property using it as they have been with that number of vehicles, correct?
As Ross has said, the use variance just brings what the current activity is there up to code, or allows what the current activity already going on.
I feel like that's more cut and dried than the other issue.
Yeah. 4 versus 5.
But BA 25-4 is just the land use variance. 25-5, which I'm understanding is dealing with the curb cut itself.
So if we approve 4, just to be clear, if we don't approve 5, that doesn't mean they can't compromise still with engineering and come up with all that, if the parties can all still work together, right?
If you approve 4, you're allowing the use that's already happened. If you don't approve 5, you're vested now. You're either approving or you're denying, one way or the other. And if you deny 5, then you can't have the wider driveway and the other driveways. They would have to come back.
You're telling them they can have their.
They would have to come back with another variance request distinctly different from what 5 already is that they had worked out.
But in the meantime, construction starts to happen.
Can we approve 4 and punt 5?
You have to make, you've had your hearing, you're invested in both of these right now. You're gonna have to make a decision on both.
My conversation, maybe it's way out there, but just it makes sense to me on the side driveway because it takes everything away from that front. And so a weird question and thought is, why can't everything happen off the side? Why can't people pull in that side driveway and you have a spot for your 8 to 10 cars park on that side where that side
Off of
entrance
Hoosier?
is? Yeah, off of Hoosier.
You can access the garage from there.
Okay,
You
so
show the pictures, you'll be one car length deep. By the time the walking path is and the end of where that's gonna be, it's gonna be about 20 feet from the building. So you're gonna be coming in, having only 20 feet this way, but you're gonna have to traverse 30 feet over and then make a right-hand turn to go into the garage.
Sorry to
So-
throw it a different direction.
So
I
in
just wanted to
in the
see.
future, the next person who would own it would then be burdened to try to drive an S curve, a sharp S curve to get access to the garage. That
I
would
was
really
just trying to think if we had to have a shortened entry, just to make everybody happy on the engineering, and you used just that for the 1 or 2 cars, but the side had all your extra cars. I was trying to compromise that way, saying you still have your driveway.
The reason I haven't compromised on the width is there is no compromise to have.
Okay.
You cannot make it shorter. It's like saying, hey, I'm gonna fix your finger, but we can't fix your finger, so I'm gonna amputate you at the elbow or the wrist. It's like, once you see tapping it down, you create more and more and more problems that don't need to be there. In terms of now we're trying to do S turns into it, somebody's trying to do S turns out, instead of being able to just back out as close as it is and be able to access the road and go and make it as smooth for traffic as it is. As for anybody who's gonna swerve in and mistake it out of a roundabout, it's been 60 feet wide now. There's a turn lane there now. No one's ever hit my mailbox in the last 12 years. So I doubt anybody's gonna mistake it. If they do, they're just a really bad driver. Like, I don't know how to explain that. Like, why are we, if that's the case, we shouldn't have walking paths anywhere because people are just mistaking them for roads on the other side of that grass. That's.
I wanted to ask a question with regard to the, what was shown as, I guess the petitioner's idea with the Hoosier Road L shape. That's not being contemplated here because that was not one of the variances that was being asked for. Is that correct?
The variance that you have in front of you is the 60-foot width and a 50-foot driveway. I don't know, that's not part of this variance.
The entrance to the curb cut at Hoosier is not part of the.
I'm just, for your,
I thought it was on here.
yeah, just for your information. I know that they showed that, but that's not what is
They
actually
needed
being
to do
requested.
paving down there and you approved their site plan, then that's part of what you.
But the second variance would have a cut for.
That's not how it's written.
Okay.
The second variance would allow for the paving, but it would be, to have that paving have any meaning, we would need a curb cut, which we need to negotiate with engineering. So that aspect of the variance wouldn't get paved and done if we didn't get a curb cut on Hoosier Road, if that makes sense.
So does your variance with the 50, 60-foot opening also another entrance at Hoosier? So in addition to the 60
So I was
foot.
informed by staff that we don't get, that they don't grant us that entry on Hoosier. That's something we have to deal with here.
No, I get that, but in case that is a subject of conversation, you would still want the 60 foot. So there's no compromise on the 60 foot in addition to the.
Right, well, the 60 foot, because, okay, the 60 foot is necessary. And I think I've said this several times. It's necessary for both the homeowner in terms of being able to negotiate off the road into the garage and back out, especially while having a home business there. And having the ability to get the trucks and trailers to go along the 22-foot strip to the west side of the house, because you can't, again, coming off the road, coming off the roundabout with all that, you want them to be able to turn and get into that and straight. And if you have them having to negotiate around a flared driveway there that then, one, the turning radius could be an issue with the front corner of the house getting onto that. And two, it's gonna take longer. It's gonna be something that people can miss more easily. So you're gonna have people maybe having to stop and back up a trailer when you're doing it. You wanna minimize that. You create, this wider entry makes that most likely to be safe ingress and egress for this. And it's the width that it's basically been.
With, Ross, I don't know if this is a question for you, but if this is approved with annexation, does that change the way that you would process the curb cut, knowing that the property will be annexed?
What was the,
So if you're gonna be secondarily looking at this curb cut, and if this property was annexed as part of that, does that change the process in which you guys were?
no, the city has jurisdiction on providing access
Either way,
with
okay.
or without the annexation.
Okay. Guys have any other discussion? Does anybody have any? Before we vote, I think it's probably worth talking about. Is there any proposed changes to these recommendations up there that you guys want to talk about before we vote?
If you're gonna make a motion rather than read all those off, I would be amenable to just having your motion with which one of those you want as part of your motion, rather than having the motion contain all that language.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of made my position clear on number one. I don't know, you may have a different opinion on that. That's
You want to
something-
restate what? Tell me.
The petitioner has just been very adamant about not wanting to be annexed. I think it's probably in their best interest to do so, but I don't necessarily want to make that a contentious point on this. I don't feel that's necessarily part and parcel to what's being contemplated here. That's just my personal opinion.
So you're leaning towards leaving that out?
I personally would be in favor of leaving that out.
The 2 through 9 here.
Yeah.
You're good with.
I'm good with 2 through 9. I feel that the petitioner, in lieu of that, should be somewhat also flexible in some of the things maybe the city's asking for. I'm not sure how that negotiation would work, but I would be fine with 2 through 9. I'm not necessarily in favor of 1. Just reading through here real quick. In addition, just looking that the variance run with the owner,
Yeah.
not with the property.
Well, number 10. Could be added 10.
That would be number 10 added, would be the variance, if approved, would run with the owner, not with the property.
Wanna make a motion on that then?
Yeah, I would make a motion to approve VA 25-4, numbers 2 through 9 as shown, and also adding 10 of the variance approval running with the property owner, not with the parcel, not with the land.
I would second that.
That was your second, Joel?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna do a roll call. Mr. Bassett,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Huck.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Rich is abstaining. So do you guys have any conversation you want to have on the second one? Have any questions?
On the approval of the second one, 25-5, on the engineering side, I know a lot of conversation has been about safety and what's happened, and I've seen a lot of times when you have work trucks come out in different areas, whether the sun goes down in a certain area or comes out and you have a big truck coming out and there's a lot of traffic. You're right now pulling out into a school area and has had no problems so far. This is now a different area where they're pulling out. I don't know anything about that. I would feel incredibly guilty if all of a sudden, traffic changes and you have big trucks coming out. They've been fine the way they've been doing it. But I don't know about the traffic thing, so I'm kind of relying on what research you guys have done. And if somebody's pulling out with a big truck and you have school traffic and, the community center traffic coming through there, I don't know what the line of sight is, what the view is. I'm depending on what other research has been done. So who would, if anybody's recommended that, what have you seen on the safety of that?
I think that depends on the width of the existing road itself, 121st Street, the makeup of 121st Street, on Hoosier Road. You now currently have extra traffic that we're seeing increasing on Hoosier Road for the sight distance from that drive on Hoosier Road. That will have to be something of my concern, knowing that people are coming around the roundabout and there's a curve coming out with them. Obviously, it's not going to be a quick in and out from that access. There's going to be increased pedestrian traffic along that road. New traffic coming in because of the community center. It's a concern of ours for that. You do have a stop condition on 121st Street, so traffic does slow down when they come to that intersection, and it makes it a lot easier for people to go in and out. It's not on Hoosier.
Petitioner, you may have answered this. The hours of operation for your business, like when your drivers come in and leave, do you mind stating that? That might be helpful to
Sunrise, sunset. 7 a.m. to 5 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. We try to get back somewhere between 5 and 6 p.m. Our guys show up at 7 a.m. Time. We try to make sure that drop off and pick up for schools is at 7:25. So we're offsetting by half hour for them in the mornings. Coming out on the Hoosier, you'll be exiting out of the roundabout. So traffic should have slowed going through the roundabout. And it's been coming out and we've seen that entrance at a point where they would need to be accelerating to it. They're already in a slowed down phase going through the roundabout. So you've already decelerated traffic coming to them as much as possible.
The only thing I'm concerned about is that it's a stop sign now and they know they're going to stop versus people roll through.
On Hoosier, there's not. So the traffic is rolling that way and people are flying through there and people are flying through.
All right, on Hoosier, yeah. I'm just talking about
on 121st. If they come zipping off of Hoosier and that school zone does not mean a thing. That means straight up hot rod acceleration.
You guys have any yeah, this one's obviously a little tougher. Everything you said makes sense about the unusableness of increasing that. And I do appreciate, it feels like engineering's been more flexible. I feel like if we did approve this, we would obviously drop the annexation like we did in the first one, for the same reasons. Although I'm still undetermined a little bit. I would say if we did approve it, my hope would be is that I don't know if there's a way to put some contingency in that there's amicable negotiations between parties. I don't know a way to put that in there, but I think if the board was in your favor tonight, there might need to be some flexibility in things. I understand the 60-foot, if we approve that width, but then if they're left to deal with what they didn't want, there might be more discussions around that I would hope would be not well, we got what we needed, I'm out. You understand? We wouldn't have any control over that unless the staff knows of some way to add something in that I don't know of a stopgap we can put in there to say, yeah, we'll allow the 60, but that's why I wish there would have been more conversation ahead of this where the engineering could have proposed different pieces and it said, well, here's some other options. And so it makes it tough.
You could approve if you chose to, under a condition that the design and the width and whatever else be approved by the city engineer. If the engineer and the petitioner were not able to come to an agreement upon the width and the curb cuts and those types of things, and the matter would come back to you for the final decision as to what the final parameters would be.
I would agree on something like
That
that.
feels good
It
to me.
makes the two work.
I think there's discussion that didn't happen before tonight that should have. That's what I think. And I know it's easy to, you're probably both going to say it was hard to get a hold of each other, but that's what's been bothering me the whole night is that it was like incomplete information. I feel like that makes me feel good about you guys.
Your approval, in that scenario, then your approval, one of the conditions of your approval would be that engineering has to approve the parameters of the width of the driveway. And I guess that's the only, is that the only factor that you're?
I think you would.
There would be, yeah, the access to
Hoosier Road access.
Hoosier and the access to 121st Street and how we can come to a conclusion there.
But the access on Hoosier is not part of your variance this evening, so.
No, but what I like is that if they're going to talk about that and that's got to be discussed, I think it all goes hand in hand and it'd be nice that that was being discussed at the same time.
Two's already been approved.
We're talking about 5.
You're talking about five.
Guys,
Clarify on the approval for 25-4, what exactly was approved? Is it just the use of the property?
Just the use with
We're
the
not
5
talking-
vehicles and the five trailers.
We're not talking about the proposal of the 22.
You're correct. That is the standards variance, which determines the width of the driveway and the open.
So for 25-5, I didn't see it included in the.
So then Rodney, what's the
So
effect
that's-
of condition number 2 on number 4? I want to make sure that they know what they voted on.
In the findings of fact, which I've drafted here, that the driveway, the parking, the storage areas, the 60-foot curb cut are contingent upon approval of 5. So it's noting in the land use variance that.
So you're reading sentence 1 of number 2 as also contingent.
Well, you're talking number 2. You're talking
I'm talking
2 under
about
number 4.
under VA 25-4, condition number 2.
Correct. The use variance is approved contingent upon any driving, parkway, storage areas, et cetera, being paved and not exceeding what's on the sketch. It doesn't approve the sketch. And anything you get under variance 5 has to be paved.
It approves the parking, the driveway, like all the driveway stuff, just not the curb.
The curb cut is a 60-foot thing.
Yeah.
I thought Rodney was saying that it needs to be paved, but the size, the scope, and everything is contingent upon the second one. So that language of not exceed that drawn in the sketch provided by staff, is that subject to the vote on 5, or is that already decided? And does the board realize that that's what they were voting on, if that's the way
No,
you
the
read it?
60-foot driveway is the standards variance.
Right.
That's different. The use variance just approved 5 trucks, 5 trailers, and anything that you're gonna park that stuff on has to be paved, period.
Got it. And a driveway could be done larger than it is currently, but within the size that staff. That could have happened today, before this meeting.
So of the storage of those vehicles, which configuration was approved? Was it the staff's or was it their drawing with the 22?
There's a size limitation on it.
It says sketch provided by staff.
Right.
And their sketch is not the L-shaped sketch. Their sketch is the red line sketch.
Where
That's the renting for the.
where the vehicles are already being parked.
Well, they can make it smaller, it's not right.
I just want to make sure that petitioner's clear what has been approved tonight.
And that simply
Because
says shall not exceed.
I'm not reading the approval as the L shape that they're proposing with the 22 feet and the 12.
That L shape that goes around the property and gets the curb cut on Hoosier Road, that's a road of right. If they get that curb cut, then they can stay a foot away. That doesn't have to seek a variance. That drawing of that extra roadway that goes around the property is not part of a variance because it doesn't have to have a variance.
That was my understanding. I
They
read
get the
that
curb
earlier.
cut, they can make
They
that,
could do
they can
that.
make that driveway.
We would only be looking at impervious surface coverage.
Which I don't think they would exceed.
They're not.
So that,
Yeah, just wanna
all
make
of
sure
that
everyone
pavement
understands what.
in the red, that was drawn in the red, could have been done already. They wouldn't.
That could be configured.
Yeah, the condition is that all the area that they were currently using is paved now rather than just gravel.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve VA 25-5 without number 1 for the annexation, but also adding, I don't know if we replace number 1 or add number 6, however you guys want to do it. Leave all the other conditions in place, but also add that we do need approval from engineering.
It also runs with the other.
And it, I don't know what you just said, but and it would run with the owner.
If the property was to be sold, we would have no requirement for a driveway to be removed.
Once they build it, they build it. So that
Got it.
So the land use is what is more pertinent to.
So state your, for the record, state that again.
I'll make a motion to approve VA 25-5 with conditions 2, 3, 4, and 5, as well as adding a condition that engineering has final approval on. However you guys want that to read, on the width and
Design.
One you abstained on.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bassett is abstaining, am I correct?
Correct.
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Huck,
Yes.
Mr. Richard.
Yes. All right. That was a tough one. I hope it works well over there. And I know it's hard when businesses are outgrowing things, but appreciate everybody's input on that. Any old business?
No, we do have some staff comments about an item we'd like for you to vote on. The audience and residents, you are free to stay if you'd like to hear for this. I will give you a second if you would like to leave. We appreciate you guys coming in tonight and being part of the public process. I do have an item though for you to vote on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
About 30 seconds.
If you're gonna be fair, because I know it's not someone, and if it's not.
They could use it too. Yeah. I'm sure the city though, I mean, we're just volunteers for the board. I'm sure the city would be happy to share on the Hoosier Road stuff. I don't really know what they're doing.
It's just like a land grab. Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care.
Thank you.
For the record, Ross Villery, Director of Planning and Zoning. Before you tonight is a new business item. This is an update to the rules and procedures. Be very brief with you. The article, that's Roman 6, hearing and rehearing. This is what we have done as staff. We have always presented after the petitioner, but it was not shown in the order of the hearing. So what we are doing is updating the rules and procedures so it is clear to the petitioner as well as the staff. The petitioner presents or their representation does, and staff presents a staff report, any recommendations to the board, which will be approved, deny, or we will give no recommendation. And then after that, the public hearing would happen at your direction. Happy to answer any questions. Due to the fact that we meet so infrequently, I do request that you vote on this item tonight so we can update those rules.
I think I'm about to sleep on it, Ross. There's no way I can decide on this tonight.
Is at your discretion.
We'll see you in November.
I would, is it a favorable recommendation? Or
A motion,
motion for a favorable?
a motion to approve the update to the rules. and
It's your rules,
Yeah.
so it's.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I make a motion to approve the update to the rules of the hearings and rehearing.
I'll second.
Do a quick roll call. Mr. Bassett?
Yes.
Mr. Fenske?
Yes.
Mr. Huck?
Yes.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Thank you.
We will provide you with a copy of those new rules.
Cool. Any staff communications or
That's it.
do we need to sign while we're here?
No, you're,
It'll be a few days.
DocuSign.
What are you doing over there, Ron?
So it's on 3 different screens, but I'll get them all together.
We just get a garage last time?
Close the meeting. Thanks, guys. Meeting.